Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
All right, it's 7:06 here. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here as we chug along this Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. Coming up in 30 minutes at 7:35, we'll check in with Maryland Delegate April Miller on what's going on with the parental consent bill in Annapolis, Maryland. And then at 8:05, Kirk Cameron. He's developing a brand new children's television series for your children that you will like. And we'll speak with Kirk Cameron about that. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. We just spoke about the Virginia Democrats who are standing in the way of a crackdown on fentanyl crimes in the state of Virginia, and that's just one of myriad issues that we want to bring up with our next guest, Virginia Delegate Ian Lovejoy. He's a member of the House of Delegates representing Manassas and the 22nd District. First of all, Delegate Lovejoy, congratulations on coming on the show here, not as a candidate, but as a delegate. How's it going so far?
Well, first of all, I appreciate being on this morning, and I appreciate all that you guys do. And so far, we're really enjoying our first session. We're proud to represent the good people of HD 22, and we hope we're doing them proud.
Well, let's talk about this fentanyl crisis, because you've got to be sticking your head in the sand to think that there's nothing going on here and it'll just go away by itself, or to think erroneously that this is just something that they have to deal with down at the border. Police in North Chesterfield just seized $500,000 of fentanyl in this one home in Virginia. Imagine how ubiquitous this is all across the Commonwealth. What are Democrats thinking now in terms of killing this bill that was put forth by Senator Obenshain to actually make it easier for cops and make the penalties tougher on the fentanyl crisis?
Well, I mean, you describe it well as a crisis. I think the current statistics are we're losing 4 to 5 Virginians a day, and I will repeat that, a day, to fentanyl overdose throughout the Commonwealth. And such staggering statistics require an aggressive response at all levels of government. I know Delegate Obenshain, I know his bill. It's unfortunate that it didn't get a fair shake of even a hearing. You have to attack this thing on many prongs. You have to work with education, with particularly with our children. We're seeing spikes in our high schools and even in middle school of accidental overdose of fentanyl. That's why I'm happy my bill, the standardized fentanyl education, is moving forward, incorporated into House Bill 1473. So at least that piece is moving forward. But you can't ignore the prong that is the criminal side of it. And unfortunately, that seems to be where absolutely heads are being buried in the sand. This is a crisis that isn't new. We do have our head around it. We know what's going on, and the fact that we're not getting tougher with criminals knowingly peddling this poison is absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking of astonishing, watching the Democrats, the bills that they're defeating, they defeated Sage's law earlier this year, and then just last week's House Democrats in Virginia defeated this bill to increase penalties for human traffickers, which seems to go hand in hand with what we're seeing with the problems on the border and with fentanyl. Are you finding you're able to work with any Democrats on these sort of crime and drug-related issues and human trafficking? Or I'm just trying to, I think a lot of people are trying to understand what Virginia Democrats are thinking here. They seem to be on the side of the criminals.
Well, I think that they've planted a flag, and they've planted their flag with an insistence on reducing convictions across the board, with reducing supposed pipelines into our prisons. And once they've planted that flag, they're finding it very uncomfortable to shift it, even for very reasonable things. And when, again, we're seeing 4 to 5 Virginians a day die, when we're seeing it in our high schools, nothing short but a comprehensive and aggressive response is appropriate. And we're only seeing drips and drabs of a response out of this General Assembly. And so I think hopefully parents and residents are taking note. And, it's unfortunate at the point now where I don't think any of us, we all know someone who knows someone who's been affected by the fentanyl crisis. And, action is demanded and warranted. And it's unfortunate we're not getting it.
The Democrats are good at one thing, though, and they're very consistent about it, raising taxes. Now $1.3 billion in higher taxes for Virginia families. Are they reading the room properly here, considering the economy right now and the struggle that Virginia families have with regard to inflation? And it's not like, we don't have a rather healthy budget situation right now in Virginia. I know that revenue was down for the first month since Glenn Youngkin became governor, but that's certainly not the reason to pull the ripcord here and start raising taxes. In fact, that will slow down the economy, won't it, Delegate?
Absolutely. And I mean, this is certainly not a time to be playing fast and loose with the economy. I mean, just go see the price of eggs, and that'll tell you how things are right now. It's unfortunate that out of the budget that the governor's team proposed, the only real substantive pieces they chose to keep were the tax increases. The original budget had some new revenue in it, but also had substantial tax decreases and tax cuts, and they've completely ignored the tax cut piece. So I think that the way it's structured now is a non-starter. I would be highly skeptical if this is the way that the budget passes. There's going to have to be the reinstatement of some tax relief for everyday residents, and it is not surprising that this is the direction that it's heading right out of the gate. But I will be very skeptical if this is how the final budget passes.
Listen, I know that people love to say to pollsters that they just want Democrats and Republicans to work it out and get together and work together to get things done. I mean, they say that, but then when you actually ask them specifically on what issues, most people take one side or the other. So it's kind of hard, we want them to work together and compromise, but I don't want to compromise on the things I believe in, right? But it looked like there was one thing that we could get together on. Glenn Youngkin proposes this brand new arena in Northern Virginia. He brings Ted Leonsis over with a huge amount of publicity to bring the Wizards and the Caps over just across the river. Democrats in the House of Delegates seem to shepherd this through. Democrats in Alexandria and the surrounding areas seem to be on the side of this, but now it's being stopped by Democrats. Louise Lucas and the Senate Democrats are stopping this, and they're trying to put roadblocks up. This seems like something they could get together on and get done. What's happening here?
Well, I mean, as well as I do, there's very little that happens in Richmond that isn't choreographed or a bit of theater. And, I think there's a reason there was a bill, there were identical bills in the Senate and an identical bill in the House. The one in the Senate got killed, but the one in the House went through with a 60-40 vote and will now be heading to the Senate for consideration. So, I think the timing of it was to make a point. I think everyone's trying to posture themselves for negotiations and to get everything they can out of negotiating not only the budget but the stadium deal should it go through. And so I think what we're seeing is just a great deal of posturing to head into the final stage of negotiations in the Senate, and then leading over into 2025 when any final votes would happen. So stay tuned, but I don't think it's as dire as it seems or as dead as it seems.
Well, it is kind of an interesting split, though, because you've got sort of Louise Lucas is sort of siding with Muriel Bowser over Democrats in Northern Virginia. So I do think it just shows a sort of bizarre rift among Democrats in Virginia.
It does. And, obviously I represent the people of HD 22. I supported passing the House's bill because it does have a reenactment clause that requires us to re-vote on it again in 2025 when all the details can be made clear. And, I want to take the details back to my district, talk to my folks about it back home and make sure that this is something that everyone's comfortable with. But, I think the stuff, if I were a betting man, I do think that the Senate will end up passing a version of the House bill, and this will really come to a head in 2025 when we have to reenact.
Let me ask you then, because, listen, Louise Lucas, Senator, the Democrat leader in the Senate, she makes a very strong populist point here. Ted Leonsis is a multi-millionaire. He owns both of those teams. If he wanted to build this building that would accommodate his teams, his ticket holders, and his business interests, and he'll make a ton of money from this arena. If he wanted to build it, he could. Why should the taxpayers of Virginia be a participant in this construction?
Well, I think any deal on the stadium has to first and foremost protect the taxpayers of Virginia. There has to be very clear ROI and the ability to cover any debt that gets issued. But at the end of the day, it's like buying a house. Many people technically have the financial resources to buy a house outright if they really, really wanted to, but ultimately we finance under the best terms we can. And that's what business folks do. Like Dionysus, he may have potentially the liquid capital to do a deal like this entirely himself, but ultimately you're trying to find a good financing deal. That's kind of what most people would do. And the question is this a good financing deal for the people of Virginia? And is the ROI there to cover any obligations that we might have several times over? And those are the details we're going to see coming out certainly before we reauthorize things in 2025.
So your idea is let's do the preliminary authorization. Let's move forward, and then in 25, the devil will be in the details, and then we'll make our final decision.
Absolutely, and that's the way this bill is structured with a reenactment clause. And so it's going to give us plenty of time to talk to our constituents, really wrap our heads around the deal, make sure that we're protected, make sure that the revenue streams are there, make sure everything that's being promised is accurate. And then we'll be able to truly make the final decision in 2025.
Delegate Ian Lovejoy, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
It's 7:17.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, senior Biden official is a man dressed like a lady pretending to be an admiral who says that the weather is racist. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
A girls' high school basketball team in Massachusetts was forced to forfeit a game against another girls' high school basketball team that had the additional feature of having a boy playing on their team. He identifies as a transgender girl, teenage girl, and there is video of this guy wrestling a rebound down from the backboards, and then there was a girl who also had her hands on the ball, trying to get the rebound. And I used to play power forward. I know what it's like. You get the ball, and then you sort of, shift at the waist and pivot your shoulders, so you sort of, rip the ball. Wrestle it away. And in this case, when he wrestled the ball away, the girl was thrown to the ground.
He threw her to the ground.
And dragged a couple of feet.
Yep.
This is what it sounded like. And you can see that
stands are filled. This girl, hit the ground hard,
writhing in pain on the ground,
and looking up at him like, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah, and two other players were injured in the course of this game as well. This guy towers over the other players. The only other tall player on the opposing team looks like comes up to this guy's shoulders.
This is really important, Larry, because in a lot of the things that we've seen, particularly with Riley Gaines, is it's a swimmer in one lane and Leah Thompson is in the other lane, but this is a team sport where the interaction is very close and very violent, and this is a perfect example of the difference between men and women on display on video for everyone to see. And I am not in any way diminishing Riley Gaines and the witness that she provides, but it really is interesting to see this interaction between two players, a boy and a girl. And this is high school level. This is when boys take off. They get so big. I'm currently watching that with my own kids, and it is so dangerous to put women in this situation.
Well, it's also a stark reminder because it's a game that we are all so familiar with, unlike swimming, and also swimming is not a contact sport.
Yes.
But we know basketball very well, and we know the moves that basketball players make, and we can see here when there is a teenage man going through puberty, utilizing his size and his strength against a young girl who is going through puberty, and we see just the stark comparison. So we saw this video during the show yesterday in our final hour, and you had mentioned in the studio during a break, and you said, look at this thing. Where are the dads?
Yes.
Where are the... And I said the same thing.
I said to you, can you imagine watching one of your daughters in this situation? What would you do?
Can't even imagine. And I don't understand why the dads aren't storming
rushing
the court.
The field.
Right.
They're rushing the court.
And I think that this now, it's time for dads to step up. And sadly, listen, Dad, I can tell you as a girl dad, as the father of two daughters, my first two children are daughters, and I can tell you it's really hard to say no to your little princess. It's hard to say no if you don't have a really good reason. And but here's the thing, dads, the only time we can righteously, without any hesitation, say no to our daughters about something that they want is when you know it will hurt them.
Yeah.
And at this point, if your daughter wants to play in organized sports and you know that this danger exists, you've got to say no to them. You've got to step up and say, no, my daughter will not participate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we're up against, but look, you know, moms, we've taken on the librarians, okay? Dads, can you step up here? Can you rush that court? Can you talk to the coaches? Because moms are tired. Okay.
You just, you know, in some cases, the librarians are a lot scarier.
I know.
Okay, so you're still taking it for the team.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:37 now. Thanks for tuning in here on this Tuesday morning. Really proud to be your morning show and ride shotgun with you as you make your way through your day. At 8:05, we're going to check in with Kirk Cameron. Of course, you know him from your childhood, watching his sitcom. But now your children will know him from children's books and now a brand new children's television series that he wants to introduce to you. So we'll let him, coming up at 8:05. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning. Eventually, I'll turn that mic on time.
Are you going to maintain control when Kirk Cameron is here? Because I am a little worried that you're going to embarrass the entire D.C. metro area.
It's possible. Got to tune in to find out.
God, all right.
I might have curled my bangs this morning.
Joining us right now is April Miller. She is a member of the House of Delegates for District 4 in Frederick County, Maryland, and she does the yeoman's work of going there to Annapolis and trying to keep a straight face as Democrats continue to propose things that will drag down our state forever. Delegate Miller, thank you for joining us, and forgive me for, messing up all your bipartisan efforts there. But let's face it, the Democrats are crazy in Annapolis. They're crazy.
Good morning. I did not do such a good job of keeping a straight face last Thursday, that's for sure.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah,
I tried.
Let's talk about that. So there was an amendment here to not allow parents to opt their children out of gender identity and sexual orientation topics in the health framework. This basically is replicating what happened in Montgomery County with their Board of Education, where they said, yeah, parents no longer have the chance to opt out. And now, of course, they want to make it statewide.
Of course, of those topics, and this will be explicit instruction, not just in a book that they're reading in the classroom, down to 5-year-olds. Correct. That is correct.
Can you give us some examples of what they're talking about here in terms of what they want to introduce kindergartners to?
So it starts, very kind of innocuous, except I don't know how you can teach some of these topics without being more explicit about it. So, they're saying gender identity will be just, people express themselves in different ways and, that you should be kind and respectful of others. But that's really getting down into the curriculum level, which each school board will actually be able to decide what's age appropriate for your child, not parents, and you won't be notified of what that is.
Delegate, do you think parents really understand this? You see books, they always show the cover of the book, right? These advocates or the people who say they're, you're banning books or book burners or whatever. They never show the inside of the book, and they never talk really about the specifics of these curriculums that are being deployed into these schools and what kids are hearing. Do you think parents really understand the level of depravity that we're seeing in both the libraries and schools and also in some of the subjects that teachers are teaching them?
Well, it was interesting that you say that because we did have parents bring some of the books to one of our committee meetings. And this was about the library, actually, conveniently, as your Kirk Cameron is coming up, which I'm super jealous about. But they brought one of the library books to our committee meeting, and the mom started reading a quote from it. She got gavelled down by our committee chair to watch her language. You can go back and watch this on the NGA website to watch her language, and we're all like, well, but these are in the school
library, yeah.
So yeah, and we couldn't even read it in committee. And we don't even know what age, that those were being, down to. But the availability of it, yes, I think parents would be very surprised. And as far as the curriculum now, they won't even know. They won't even have the chance to to preview it. They won't have the chance to opt out or even know when it's being taught.
If a parent out there in Maryland has the quaint notion that perhaps issues as complex and important and, frankly, touching on basic family values and morals and religious principles, topics like same-sex attraction, if they should be best served for a parent to introduce those topics within the parameters of their faith and within the parameters of their family morals, that they should introduce those topics to their 5-year-old instead of a state bureaucrat and a public educator. If a parent wants to push back on this, what are they supposed to do at this point? Are the Democrats in Annapolis even listening?
Well, and that's so I would definitely reach out and contact, because we are having the floor discussion and vote should probably be coming this week if it came out of committee last week. The other thing is I would recommend is that you at least have your Board of Education put a parent notification policy in place. If this does pass and if this would go statewide, at least see if you can get them to help determine what is actually age and developmentally appropriate, and that you at least get the notice. So that's one thing you could do, like as far as for your local board, if this were passed. But the goal is to keep this from passing. It does have to go over to the Senate after passing the House.
You know, someone like me who raises the alarm about this and saying, look, parents are not allowed to opt out of this, and they're introducing these very complex issues to 5-year-olds. The only reason that they would do that is because they want to introduce the topic to them to sort of help educate them. I mean, some people would use the word groom them.
Yes.
To bring them into this world of incredibly complex issues that a 5-year-old literally cannot and should not have to fathom. And we're yelled at, we're screamed at, we're called bigots, right? And we're told, Delegate Miller, that the reason that they want to do this is to increase tolerance, to help educate children so that they don't become, gay-bashing bigots. Would you please help me out here? If I missed something, is there a rash of gay-bashing violence and anti-gay, anti-trans bigotry that is running rampant in the state of Maryland? Because I've lived in Maryland over a dozen years now, and I have not noticed that. What exactly are they trying to fight against here in Maryland, if that's their argument?
No, I think most parents, like teaching kindness and respect for everyone, is something that we all agree with. That is absolutely true. I'd look no further than who Advocates for Youth and Planned Parenthood are two of the groups that were very much behind the health framework. This is not just a Maryland thing. This is actually a national agenda.
Yeah.
So I would look no further than looking at the national agenda and what are the groups and the group's goals, particularly Advocates for Youth. If you would like to look up that would tell you a lot of the answers to your questions. And I couldn't have said it better as far as what you were saying.
Well, that's the thing. Short of some rash of gay bashing hate crimes that we are certainly not seeing in Maryland, if that's not what they're fighting against, then the only obvious answer here is that they are in fact trying to groom children and normalize something that many parents believe really should be left to them to introduce to their children. So flood your delegate.
Yeah, and when it's developmental,
when it's developmentally appropriate, 100%, and with materials that are appropriate. And let me just be clear here.
Correct.
This isn't even about keeping this instruction out of schools. They're going to do that. They're already doing that. This is about you not being able to opt your child out.
Yes.
You're not even allowed to exercise any discretion over your children and say, yeah, okay, fine, you can go ahead and teach other kids that, but not my kids. Yeah. Outrageous. April Miller, hold the line there if you can on behalf of the good people of Frederick. And hopefully we'll be able to stop this.
Thanks,
Thank
April.
you. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me. All right.
Everyone, you need to flood your delegate and flood your senator's in mailbox. This is Maryland House Bill 558. 558. Just remember that, 558. Send your emails now. Let them know that you oppose it. Otherwise, I don't know why parents would stay in Maryland with young children.
Well,
certainly not with their children in the public schools. That's for sure. Westmore, where's Westmore on this? Leave no one behind.
Yeah.
Westmore presented himself.
Where's Senate candidate Hogan?
Yeah, I'd love to hear Larry Hogan's take on this. 7:45 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes first on the fives. So as you know, Madonna is doing the geriatric tour here. She's very old. I don't mind her being old and going on tour. I think the Rolling Stones are quite old, and they often go on tour. The difference is she's dressing like she's 20 years old.
Yeah, Taylor Swift.
She's actually sluttier than Taylor Swift.
Oh, well, definitely.
That's sort of her
She always has been, yeah.
thing, right? And last night, a video is going around of her concert appearance last night where she took a spill. She's being dragged on a chair. You know that scene in Cabaret?
It looks like she's being dragged on by Sam Britton.
Yeah, it's one of her dancers dressed in high heels and a bustier, a dude.
Yeah.
Who's sort of dragging, it's part of the choreography, he's pulling the back of the chair while she's sitting straddled on the front of the chair, right? And because he's walking on high heels and he's a dude, he falls down.
And he takes her with him.
And here's what it sounded like. And you can hear the reaction from the crowd here. Strangely, though, she didn't miss a note. It's almost like the vocal track is there.
Yeah, almost.
Whether she moves her lips or not.
Yeah.
Strange how that works, isn't it?
I gotta say, my favorite commentary on Madonna is everybody acting like she's going downhill or she's now tacky, as if she hasn't always been kind of gross.
Oh, sure. The difference is now it's just sort of sad and pathetic because she's like falling over and she's like got this giant knee brace on her leg. She's, there's one scene where she's just sort of leaning against a rail and moving her hips and gyrating because she can't actually do the squats herself because she's an old woman.
She's getting up there. How old is she now?
We actually, she's pushing 70, and
really?
So one person had a camera really close to her. So the first shot that we just played you was from sort of far away, and you can hear the music track. But we actually had somebody right up on the edge of the stage with audio of what she's actually yelling at the dancers on stage.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
And so this concert is now brought to you by Lifeline. Check it out. It's 7:50.